we have something called zeros. And you know what? I don't think you guys need to write this down. If you just watch and not like drool and fall asleep, I did not tell him to do that. This is X-Intercepts. That was too rough. But are you awake? No? Alright, so what are zeros? Zeros are inputs that make an output 0. X-intercepts are also inputs that make the output 0, and they also really do cross the x-axis. Your Y-intercept is just where it crosses the y-axis. This is where it really happens. This is where it really happens. This is where some weird, crazy stuff happens, and I'm going to explain it all to you. Let's solve, actually, let me go, hang on a second. Let me go over here. Let's just graph it so you guys can understand. Y'all remember x squared? If I graphed x squared into the calculator, the graphing calculator, would it make a line or would it make a parabola? Parabola. Good. And I have no idea what this is. Exit drawing. This is exactly what I want to do. I should move that out of the way. Sorry, I thought I had this pulled up already. Alright, x squared. Alright, there it is. Does it cross the x-axis? What? That's the x-axis. Does it touch, let me say, does it really touch the x-axis? Like, can you see it with your eyeballs that it really touches the x-axis? Okay, cool. Do y'all remember, like what, well, let me do it in minus. Remember if I put a a minus 2, see how it's 2 places below the origin? Can you see with your real eyeballs that it really does cross the x-axis right here? And then what could I add to this to make it float above the origin? Positive number, good. Now, does this really cross the x-axis? It doesn't really cross it. And the reason why I bring that up is because sometimes graphs don't cross the x-axis, but we can still solve it. Let me write that equation right here. Remember that equation was x squared plus 4 equals 0. And guys, I'll do this work. You just watch. Can you factor a sum of 2 squares? No. That's not factorable. If it was a minus sign, we could. Since it's not factorable, we have to solve it. So I'm going to move the 4 over. X is not by itself yet. It's being squared. How do you undo something being squared? What do we draw? What else are we drawing? Plus minus. Very good. So I am going to square root both sides. X is going to be by itself, plus or minus. Now, listen to me, don't look to that. What is the square root of regular 4? Do y'all remember what to do when it's negative 4? There you go. It's an imaginary answer. And it's an imaginary answer because y'all saw the graph. It doesn't really cross the x-axis. If it's not real, what's the opposite of real? Imaginary. But that is a 0. Like if I plugged this in and did my math right, I'd get 0 for an answer. So just remember, sometimes you have answers that do not cross the x-axis. And for right now, for the next few weeks, anytime you try to square root something that's negative, it's not an x-intercept. Over here, back to this graph, let me erase that positive 4, and let me write negative 4. So when I write negative 4, does it cross the x-axis? What's the square root of 4? 2. Yes, not just 2. What else? Negative 2, right? So that, if it looks like this, by the way, can you factor a difference of 2 squares? Yes. if you can factor it, it really crosses the x-axis. So remember, this is x minus 2, x plus 2. So you have an x-intercept at 2, 0, and negative 2, 0. Last column, I love finding y-intercepts. Half of you guys can find a y-intercept in your head. This is just order of operations. So easy. All right, let me show you guys some examples here. All right, pick up your pencil. Let's go ahead and work with me. So we're going to find the zeros and any y-intercept of each function. So what is the power of that It's to the third power. So we are going to find x and y-intercepts. I'm going to make my little graphic here. Remember to find the y-intercept. X is 0. That's all it is. Let's work on this one first. I'm going to drop a 0 in for the letter x. So y is going to equal negative 2 times 0 to the third power plus 4 over 3. What happens to that? Just goes away. What's left over? That's it. That's the answer. The y-intercept is 4/3. That goes away. Anything times 0 is 0. Now, let's focus on the x-intercept. Guys, for the x-intercept, you always have to solve. You always have to solve. You always have to factor for right now in this unit. So, remember for this, I don't know why this isn't working because I'm not using my thing. I'm sorry, guys. Hang on a moment. So, for the x-intercept, the y value is 0. So this time, 0 is going to equal negative 2x to the third plus 4 over 3. Now we're focused on finding the x-intercepts. Okay. So, guys, it doesn't matter if you're in like college calculus 5. You can't solve for x when it's a fraction. It is impossible. You can't solve fractions. How do I make that fraction go away? Yeah, multiply both sides by what?
3.
Yes, always the denominator. Wipe it out, multiply both sides by 3. What's 0 times 3? That side's going to stay 0. And then remember, when you multiply by 3, those cancel out. So we're going to be working with 0 equals negative 2x to the third plus 4. Can you factor that? Is there a factor? Is there anything going on there?
No.
Remember, you always want to try to factor.
A 2.
A 2. We can take a 2 out. That's right. Let's take a negative 2 out of both sides. Look at that. Do you have any questions on that? Divide both sides by negative 2. Remember, that fraction's okay. What does that simplify to again?
0.
Still just a 0. That's right. 0 is going to equal x to the third minus 2. I can't factor that, so we're straight solving now. Guys, move the negative 2 over. It's going to be positive. And is x by itself? No. I'll just answer my own question because of that. What is that? Cubic. Y'all, is that odd or even?
Odd.
Odd. And I'm about to draw a cube root that's odd. And when it's odd, you never. There's no such thing as plus minus. Only when you draw an even root. So we're going to cube root both sides. And so x is going to equal the cube root of 2.
Why did you do that? Put the x cubed minus 2 again?
Because we factored out a negative 2. If you just moved the 4 over and divided by -2, you could have got the same. We just factored it out. We just factored out a GCF. See how the -2 is right there? And -2 times x to the third is that. And -2 times -2 is...
Okay.
All we did was take it out. That's all. Hang on just a moment. Why are you packed up?
Oh, I leave early to go to the bus. Didn't Mr. Foster tell you?
No.
Oh, Mr. Foster should have told you then.
Like how early?
2:20. You can ask Mr. Foster. He can tell you.
Yeah, I need to totally confirm that. If you can give me just a moment, I'm going to continue this. All right, guys. So we got x to equal the cube root of 2. Y'all, that's a real number. It is ugly, but it's a real number. So we need to go back and fill in that that is also an x-intercept. So you have one x-intercept and one y-intercept. All right, let's take a look at the next problem. For the next problem, guys, let's focus on the y-intercept real quick. If you could please find the y-intercept, and remember for the y-intercept, which one is 0, the x or the y? That's right. Plug a 0 in for x squared and solve it. All right, you can go. Thank you. I don't know how this is going to work out when he leaves 15 minutes early. All right, so now what we're going to do is, guys, y'all plugged in a 0, right? So for my y-intercept, what happens when you plug in a 0 right here? What's 0 squared? 0. What's 0 plus 6? That's the answer. Your y-intercept is just 0 root 6. Now look, was there already a square root symbol printed there? Mm-hmm. If there is, don't worry about plus minus. It's only when you draw it. So it is 0 root 6. Let's find the x-intercept. Now remember, for the x-intercept, it equals 0. We're solving. So 0 is going to equal the root of x squared plus 6. Y'all, just like a fraction, you can't solve x when it's in a square root symbol. How are you going to get rid of it? Square both sides. That's right. Again, the left side stays 0. So 0 is going to equal x squared plus 6. Is that factorable? No, so we have to solve for x. Y'all, that 6 is moving. What is it going to be on that side? It's going to be negative. It's going to be a -6. So x squared stays where it's at. 6 gets pushed over. X is not by itself, y'all. We have to square root both sides. So I'm going to draw, what else when I draw a square root symbol? Plus minus, that's right. So we're going to have plus minus the square root of -6 equals x. However, that's not a real number, totally not a real number, but guys, we can't leave the negative in there. Do y'all remember how to get rid of the negative? Yeah, just put an I on the outside. Just put an I on the outside. So x, our final answer is x equals positive negative I root 6. And that is so not real. If that is not real, then it does not really cross the x-axis. So your x-intercepts are none. All right, so listen, I know y'all are like focused on it being 232, which means no one's going to